It's Bret the Hitman Hart. Make sure you watch the Wrestling Roundtable.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. We're going to talk about the best and worst of SummerSlams, just as we did for WrestleMania earlier this year, and just like we did for the history of WrestleMania. I want to get the worst out of the way because really, SummerSlam has a really good history and it's fun. So I want to save the best for last, and let's get the bullshit out of the way and start with some of the worst matches at SummerSlam history. What were one of them, Rod?
Undertaker versus Undertaker. This was coming off the heels of a great steel cage match with Bret and Owen, and you had the first of many, which happened last month, of Undertaker returns. The return was great, but once the bell rang, the crowd was, they didn't know what to do. The match, they looked like two lost wrestlers.
There's no way they were going to follow up that classic cage match with that garbage.
Yeah.
Nash and Mabel. Diesel and Mabel.
Nash did a plancha in that match, goddammit.
That
You
makes
like
it
the
okay.
flying shoulder tackle?
It's a rule with Undertaker and Nash. If they do one flying move over the top rope, it was a great match. Heck, even WrestleMania this year, we were like, and then Undertaker flew, and we were like, this is an awesome match.
He almost died doing it.
But it's the same complex the big guys have to fight. And that was the template for the new Hogan. We have to find a fat guy, a big fat guy to fight the big tall guy. Mabel's fat. Let's get him in there and have them fight the tall guy.
He was like the Black Bundy for a giant
And
Hogan.
of course, the match. There's no
King
way that
Mabel.
could have ever been good no matter how much they tried. They could have went to Japan and trained with Misawa. And bad idea all around.
Undertaker versus JBL from 2004.
Oh.
Oh, man. The feud that would not die begins that night. The worst champion since the brand split on SmackDown. Rather than give Eddie a rematch or whatever, they go with this shit, and then they end it by DQ to set up a limo match or whatever the fuck that was.
Well, they do these high spot
Limo
stunt
match.
spots to make up for it. But that match had one of my favorite moments in SummerSlam history, and that was when Undertaker slipped on the limo. I've never seen Rodney laugh so hard.
It comes up once a year on the show.
Thank God Randy Orton fought nobody afterwards for the
just-
title.
he just won the
Oh,
title.
yeah,
He won
just
the
won the
title
title.
from the Invisible Man that night to save the show.
Well, speaking of the supernatural, you can see the common theme for a lot of these is the Undertaker. We haven't even mentioned the Giant Gonzalez match in '93 and several other matches he's had. But the one to me, I mean, I don't even know if Divas Dodgeball counts as a match or not.
The stink face match with the Cat and Terry.
Oh, Christ. But he's like the reverse Mr. WrestleMania or Michael's
If you
just
think
Mr.
about it,
WrestleMania.
Bret Hart's probably Mr. SummerSlam, and he's like the SummerSlam LVP, the guy that we couldn't give a shit.
Well, the
about.
one that sticks out to me was for the WCW and WWF tag belts, so needless to say, this is during the invasion, SummerSlam 2001, and it was title for title in a cage match, Undertaker and Kane versus DDP and Canyon, 2/3 of the Jersey Triad, I might mention.
Brutal.
It looked like someone was playing SmackDown versus Raw on very difficult because it was the biggest fucking squash I've ever seen. I don't think they even got one move in, but we're going to get some more moves in because we're going to move on to what were some of the worst moments at SummerSlam.
Austin breaking his neck at SummerSlam 97.
It was a
Even
freak
though-
accident, though, you know.
It was a freak accident. It was a very awkward ending, even though at the end they used it in a great storyline to build up his character. But at the same time, like you mentioned on the show before, how it kind of affected the main event matches, punch, kick, punch, kick, punch, kick.
Well, but they also used his actual real life injury for his Stone Cold character, and it ended up being great with the Mr. McMahon stuff, but I wouldn't even say it's the worst based on that, because obviously it didn't work out the way they wanted. The match was going great before then,
Right.
and it's a terrible thing to happen. You don't want to see that happen to anybody, well,
Yeah,
maybe a few people.
especially your biggest star.
But the fact that he had such guts to even be able to walk after that or limp away from the ring, I think that makes up for it.
The Lex Express finally arrives.
And gets counted out.
Build up. He beats Yokozuna, and the streamers fall because the fat guy can't get back in the ring. What a hero.
It's understandable if every now and then you want one of these matches to end by a DQ or a countout to get that anything can happen feel, but you don't make it into the greatest celebration of all time. You don't go to the USS Intrepid on 4th of July to build this
What
shit
a
up.
build up, man. That freaking Aaron Neville singing the national anthem, everybody coming out.
It was the most pathetic example of them not pulling the trigger ever, especially at the second biggest show of the year. They're trying to make Luger into the new Hogan, and we all knew that even as we were kids. But if you're going to do it, go all the fucking way. It was pathetic that Luger got this balloon confetti celebration like it was a great victory when he didn't even win the belt. You blew it, Luger, like Cornette said.
Yeah.
on Raw.
Here's the same thing in the opposite way. They build up a heel, Triple H, and he gets to SummerSlam, and in a match that got tweaked and changed every week for like 6 months.
Yeah.
At one point, I think it was China versus Vince McMahon versus Jesse Ventura for the title. He doesn't win, and the other guy wins, who was like inserted in the match
And he won the next night of Raw.
with
so
a
what the
double
fuck
arm
is the point?
DDT.
And we've been paying for it ever since.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Shawn Michaels and Vader, 1996. Phenomenal match. Terrible ending. The ending is fine if it had gone the other way. Vader was built up all year to
From the
be
Rumble.
this beast. He attacked Gorilla Monsoon, suspended. Everything is going. It looks like this is the guy. This is going to be the monster. And he can wrestle. He can do moonsaults and everything. And then he does his moonsault, misses Shawn Michaels, and it's over.
That was it
What
for
the
me.
fuck
To the
was
mid
that?
card you go.
Not
That
just
was it for me.
Vader, I think, was originally supposed to win, and it was a good match up until the finish, so I don't think it would be as bad as the Elimination Chamber in 2003. Much like 99, where it was supposed to be Austin and Triple H, where he was going to get the rub and
Right.
get
Right.
the belt. It was supposed to be Goldberg and Triple H, but for numerous reasons, Triple H was wearing his bicycle pants at the time, when he had a groin tear or something like that, but they also probably didn't have the confidence in Goldberg, but it ended up being, after Nash left, because we can't have Nash get pinned by Goldberg, when Goldberg came in and was tearing through everybody, Orton, Michaels, Jericho, everybody at home, the crowd is getting so fucking hot, like, oh my God, this is the Goldberg we remember, this is great.
Yeah.
Triple H is the heel that doesn't want to get involved, so Goldberg gets to break through the
Break
glass.
through the
Didn't
glass.
break his arm off this time. And
That could actually fall under great
Wow.
moments. Just that one little moment right there.
as we know what happened, he came in, Triple H beat him without even using a wrestling move, and killed that moment for all of us.
Well, that was Triple H's run of, I missed the invasion, so now I'm going to beat the good WCW guys.
Let's move on to some of the worst overall shows.
2001. It's the invasion, and everything was going wrong, and then SummerSlam has to be a train wreck too. They
Rock and
booked-
Booker T had a good match.
They had a good match, but the wrong guy went over. You had that tag team title match on there. More burial of WCW. Prolonged burial.
2004, John Cena vs. Booker T was the only match where face won. I didn't like the show.
Angle and Guerrero had a really good
Yeah,
match
that's
on
They
there.
Great
did.
match.
That was it. That was it.
Oh, you want to take your pick? 2006, 2007, 2008,
They're all the
2009.
same show.
They're all pretty much the exact same show.
Well, a lot of the last several years seem to have one pretty good match on it, and the rest may be shit. Like last year, Cena Batista was really good.
I went to 2006 in Boston. I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it at the time. But I remember going home very unhappy because of some bullshit Batista match with Booker T. But I think back, and I can't think of a good match on the. There wasn't anything that was like, wow, that was a good match. It was like Mysterio and Chavo again, DX versus the McMahons again.
Well, much like WrestleMania, we went to WrestleMania 15, the height of the Attitude Era, and saw it was shit. I think SummerSlam 99 might qualify for that too, because we
yeah.
talked about the main event before. The undercard was ridiculous as well. When Shane McMahon and Test is your best match of the night, you don't have a lot going for you. But I think 1993 qualifies too. With the main event of Luger and Yokozuna, there's really not much in the undercard either. The Heavenly Body Steiners match was really good,
Bret
but aside
Hart.
from that,
And Jerry Lawler.
And Doink.
You have to wait through more stupid stuff to get to the match.
Thank God for the ladder match that saved 95, because even Bret Hart versus Isaac
Another
Yankovic.
that was a decent match though.
It was
Yeah.
decent.
It
I
was-
hated 89 also just on the premise of the main event. The Mega Powers explode, so Hulk Hogan has to bring his friend in, and Zeus is in the main event of a pay-per-view.
I hated 96 because of the Shawn Michaels ending, and Cleveland, Ohio was just dead. If it wasn't for the boardroom brawl, the show would have been shit.
Well, hopefully this show isn't shit, because we're going to move on to the best of SummerSlam when we come back.
Anybody here? Was that you? Who? I just thought I felt something hit me right here.
I have not manipulated this in any way, shape, or form. This is straight through. You'll hear Jen say, "Is anyone there?" and you'll hear
What's your name?
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. The negativity is out of the way, and we're going to talk about some of our happy memories of SummerSlam, some of the best of SummerSlam history. So let's start with the matches like we did in the previous segment. There's a lot to choose from. What do you think were some of the best SummerSlam matches?
Bret and Perfect from 91. Great IC title match. Bret won in the Garden.
His coming out party.
His coming out party. As a singles wrestler, it was really good.
And the moment of Stu and Helen in the audience.
Yeah,
Awesome
yeah.
stuff. Bret and Bulldog from Wembley.
Just a year later.
That's the match that got me into amateur wrestling. I told Bret that too.
Babyface versus babyface, and the right guy went over too.
In the main event.
And what's really cool
IC
about that
title,
match
yeah.
in hindsight is after Bret lost, it really jettisoned him into the role of being able to be a credible main eventer in that immortal Hulk Hogan kind of way, where it lends to the legend to help him become a world champion.
And they went over Savage and Warrior, which are two
Yeah,
huge names.
right. Every booking decision was made for the main event, and everything was put in the right place on the card. The right guy went over. They went against a lot of their typical formula to do the right thing.
In a way, Bret was in the position that Morrison is now, where he's been the guy that they've been looking at pegging as the next guy for years. And they kind of stalled that with the repushed Hart Foundation. And this was almost his litmus test because it was obviously in Britain they were going to main event with the Intercontinental title, but it was almost like his test to see if he can handle the main event.
Bret versus Owen, but I think we've talked about that enough in the cage. Edge versus Lance Storm, a guy that we're pretty negative on Edge. They had a great match for the Intercontinental title
In the opener of
01. It's a great match. Edge really picked it up. Lance can bring out the best in a lot of people. And it was a great way to open what would turn out to be a terrible show.
He should get a prize for remembering that match from the Invasion era, an actual match between two wrestlers.
Well, we could keep the Bret love going because I think the 2 out of 3 Falls tag title match with Demolition in 1990 was one of the best tag matches
One of the
I've ever
coolest
seen.
finishes ever, also.
Also, Kurt Angle's had a lot of good SummerSlam matches between
Another
Rey
Mr.
Mysterio
SummerSlam.
Jr.,
Yeah.
Brock,
And
Guerrero. But speaking of Brock, our boy, as we talked about, the UFC heavyweight champion had one of the best matches I've ever seen at SummerSlam in 2002, his coming out party against The Rock. And I can watch that match back anytime, and it is still as good as it
UFC
was.
star versus the movie star. It was a really good match. The right guy won. I remember we were watching it. We were all marked out when they put the right guy over clean, and you knew that this guy is going to be a star.
Well, let's move on to some of the best moments at SummerSlam, because that could certainly qualify. There were a lot in 2002. What were some of the best moments in SummerSlam?
The Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth finally tied the knot in the Garden. The match made in heaven.
No interference.
Well,
They saved the snake shit till
saved
the
the
week
snake,
later.
right?
Yeah.
But for them not to have pies and cakes in the face and all
You
that
couldn't do that for
crap.
Macho and
It was
Elizabeth.
Macho. And the proposal before.
Elizabeth, Rodney, what do you think are some of the best moments of SummerSlam?
All the big wins at SummerSlam 91. LOD finally winning the tag titles. Bret, as we mentioned before, and Virgil. Because Million Dollar Man's been treated like shit all these years. And finally, after the clusterfuck at WrestleMania, he wins the $1 million belt and actually makes it almost a credible belt.
This Virgil DiBiase stuff, the Macho Man Miss Elizabeth stuff, had been building since the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And this was a big blow-off for it.
One of the absolute funniest moments in wrestling just altogether was SummerSlam 2005 when Kurt Angle beats Eugene to get his gold medals back. And he makes the ref set up the chair and have a closing ceremony, like bends over and makes him put the medals on. It's hilarious, and that's one of my favorite moments from SummerSlam.
Aside from the big wins and the moments like that, the Mountie Bossman match in 1991 was very underrated, and that match is awesome.
Yes, God.
Those vignettes were very adult for the audience they were putting WWF out to in 1991. They're funny, and they last. But not only that, in 2005, when Hulk Hogan came back and pinned Shawn Michaels, and he just cried like he always does about this bullshit. Oh, Hogan, oh, he's left and blah, blah, blah. Nope. Hogan comes back and beats your boys like he did to Triple H.
I love it, because he could still come back and do it today. And we would all accept it.
And Michaels hates that. I hate Shawn Michaels. But one thing I love is some of the older SummerSlams. So let's move on to some of the overall shows. What do you think stands out as some of the best SummerSlams?
2002 is one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-views of all time. You finally put the new guy over at this big show, Brock, and the Triple H HBK brought Michaels back into the mainstream. He's been on a pretty big roll ever since then. The opener.
There's not
obviously,
one bad
not
match
one
on
bad
that show.
And it's one of those New York shows too, so it has that bit
Yeah.
of a legacy. Legacy.
94, except for the main event. I thought it opened really well with Bam Bam and IRS versus the Head Shrinkers. They had a great women's title match. Nash and Hall had a very good IC title match, and you had the cage match tying in Bulldog into the whole family rivalry. I thought it was a great and exciting show.
It's biased because we were there in 1997.
It is biased.
It's completely biased because we were there, but seeing the whole Hart Foundation come out at the end, Brett wins the title, it was just a great show.
It also opened with the cage match with Mankind,
With
and Triple
Mankind
H. That
jumping
was
off
pretty
the
good.
cage, the nation came down right by our seats.
You can see us on
LOD.
pay-per-view doing the Black Belt.
Yeah.
As overall shows, 1990 and 1991 both really stand out. We covered 1991 in detail. 1990 had Hulk Hogan's big comeback against Earthquake, the Warrior Rude cage match. The tag title match was great. Much like we said about WrestleManias 6 and 7, it features the who's who of our childhood, and they were all doing really well.
And I must say, the drama of seeing Sapphire turn on Dusty Rhodes.
It was
and
good.
then in the follow, I think it was the match right after, knowing Hogan had to fight Earthquake and could die at any moment, and Warrior has to go into a cage with Ravishing Rick Rude. That stuff was
couldn't
really
sleep at
good.
night.
Great. I couldn't sleep at night. I really couldn't.
I did like the drama of the Sapphire stuff. Where's Sapphire, baby? I don't know where she is. Building up the whole night to find out, oh, she's with me, haha, and he drives away. No! It was drama.
And knowing that Sapphire and Dusty's child Cody is on his way to a great career.
Well, next week we're going to have our season finale. We're going to be talking about the fan-chosen topic of what should WCW have done after Starrcade 1997. And we're also going to have our third submission round, the Q&A. So check WrestlingRoundtable.com. We've got some more contests for our biggest fans coming up, and we always have something for you on WrestlingRoundtable.com. So thank you for watching the show. For Rodney LeConte, Martin LeConte, Chris Harris, Lawrence Haber, I'm your host, Eric Santamaria, and we're the Wrestling Roundtable, wishing you...
Happy Halloween!